My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be John and the Universan Video 13, A Visit to Chichen, Itza, Part 4. So here's my book, John and the Universan, Nothing is Known. Two figures inside a beat-up old spaceship. On the way to visit Stonehenge, John wonders whether his English ancestors might have been involved in the building of that mysterious megalith. Suddenly, he finds himself being held prisoner in a spaceship by an alien who tells John that despite government secrecy on his home planet, he's heard rumors that over many centuries his own ancestors have taken part in a series of major building projects here on Earth. Together, John and the alien embark on a tour of ancient sites, including Stonehenge, in search of their common ancestral roots. So, I suggested in an earlier video reading that one way for a reader to think about a book is to consider that every character in a story has an agenda. It strikes me that the alien who asked John to call him a Universan has given himself two opposing agendas. Number one, the Universan has determined that he will say nothing about his home planet that will tell John, an Earthling, where his home planet is located in the universe. And number two, the Universan seems to have a tremendous urge to tell John all about the history of the entities who live on his home planet. So, two opposing agendas. One is to not tell John anything about his home planet, and the other is to tell John everything about his home planet. Let's have a look at the fourth part of the trip to Chichen Itza as we wonder how well the alien, the Universan, is able to balance these two seemingly contradictory agendas. So, let's go then to page 45. And we'll see. Well, John, what followed resembled chaos, but it was very orderly, in fact. An Earthling would have missed, no doubt, the telltale signs. Your planet seems to have started in chaos, but our planet started as something else. Chaos, John, on our planet, I assure you, is largely unknown. I've been doing a bit of searching, John. Let me tell you what I have found. You know the French Revolution? It's in your mind, so of course you do. Well, it was decided that of the elites we would have a great purge. We don't use paper, we don't use ink, John, but we have ways to organize things. So, let's call them charts, diagrams, grids, John. You can think of them as projected up on the sky. All the elites who had tormented our people with all the crimes that they had committed beside their names. We called them retrospective crimes, as I recall. And we met in a very large area, John, what you would call the Place de la Concorde, if you were thinking of the altercation in France. We don't have jails, John. We don't have prisons. This narrative is really frustrating for me. The elites were confined, John, by a method which you could not, I am sure, conceive. One by one they were brought out in public, and their names and their crimes were read. The tumblers would rumble into the courtyard. We used, Universan conveyances. I'm making this up as I go along. And our courtyards, unlike yours, don't have any cobblestones, so the rumbling is something I'm adding for color as well. Needless to say, it was a deluge, though actually our water is something else, and we don't have blood, but I'll call it a bloodbath anyway, John, for now. The elites were terminated, undone, erased, one by one, before our eyes. So the Universan is trying to find what he calls equivalences, information in John's mind that he can use to describe what happened on his home planet without giving away any of the details of his home planet. He doesn't want Earthlings to know where he's from because his people have decided that the Earthlings have destroyed the Earth and are looking for another planet to inhabit which they would then destroy. So he doesn't want John to know where he's from. There is a ritual on our planet, John, though some would see it as entertainment, a sideshow and amusement for the crowd. Some have condemned it as cruel, vindictive, insincere, inhumane, not one of our words, since so rarely is a verdict overturned. We always ask the condemned person, the one who is facing the music, facing eternity, facing the firing squad, what each of them could possibly say for themselves. Some of their speeches were rather pathetic. The equivalent of laughter bounced off the walls. No one wanted to hear how sorry they were now that they were facing not heaven, John, nor hell, as you people seem to believe here on earth, but I gather that we have eternity as a concept that we share. They were being removed from the world they had known, John. No doubt some were genuinely sorry. No doubt others were self-serving as well. So this will come back later in the story. When they had these people, the elites, captive, they asked them what they could say for themselves. And some of the aliens said, well, it's not fair because we've already decided we're going to do away with them. So it's cruel to make them plead for their lives. This will come back in the final chapter. The idea that a person who's asked to plead for his life has already been condemned, and the pleading will do no good. Now, the alien goes on. The Universan goes on. I was in the crowd that day, John. I am not a vindictive person, John, not cruel, not selfish, not proud, but I too cheered loudly as I watched these heads, as you would say, roll. Death to the hated ones, I found myself shouting with everyone else. We were all soaring on the same updraft, John. I felt giddy at the tips of my wings. Do you know what it is to have someone, a hated enemy, as preferred, helpless, prostrate, powerless, under your thumb? I believe in the equality of people, let's just say entities, that's more how we think of ourselves, but the cart, John, must follow, you see, the horse. Yes, I wanted democracy, John, equality, fraternity for sure, but only after I had my fair dose of revenge. The fear of a cornered creature, John, produces a nectar that I would imagine would tickle the nostrils of your ancient earthly gods. The family dog and the neighbor's chickens, John, you see. A taste and one craves such ambrosia again and again. So the Universan confesses that having someone under his power is a pretty enjoyable experience. And by the end of this story, we'll have a situation where the alien has John under his power. And he talks about the family dog and neighbor's chickens. You can't have a dog in the country who kills the neighbor's chickens, because once a dog kills one chicken, he enjoys the process and he'll want to kill all the neighbor's chickens. So is the alien a kind, gentle person or a cruel, vindictive person? Is he like the family dog when he has the power to destroy someone? Well, we'll find out perhaps in a later chapter. He goes on. Well, this is quite a confession, John, but I know with you it will not go far. I am far more human than anyone who knows me has been able to perceive. The tables were now turned, John. The first was now, John, last. The mighty was stretched out, John, in the blood-soaked dust. They had been Simon Legree, and now the keys to the guillotine, John, were in our hands. Their blood must be made to stain the cobblestones. Suffering, revenge, then peace is the rhythm of life on all planets, I assume. Metaphorically speaking, John, is a term you're familiar with, I know. You are gathering my pearls of wisdom, I hope, as they fall into your lap. It's very difficult to translate our thoughts, our emotions, into what I assume would be yours. You know, it's only fair to say, John, if I may be permitted an aside, that communications on my planet are not always soft, serene, smooth. We don't have races or religions or skin color. Of course, we don't have skin, nor any of the other things that seem to cause the great gulfs, crevices, divides among you humans here on Earth. In fact, we are as unlike as one could wish for if harmony is seen as a goal. And yet, John, perception and communication of even the simplest of ideas is the Grand Canyon, the Red Sea, the Hellespont that we continuously face. The water as a barrier, a fire retardant, even a drink is unknown in our world. The greatest challenge for every entity on my home planet, John, is to be able to sympathize, empathize, harmonize with another Universan entity, an improvised term, of course, thinks and feels. Often there is misunderstanding, resentment, accusation, confrontation, altercation, which can blow up, as does nature, into a hurricane, a tornado, a typhoon. There are issues on which no two people would seem to agree. No wonder, John, that you and I don't see eye to eye on what significant information you should be willing or should be forced, John, to reveal. I'm being honest with you, John. I hope you're not surprised. I hope you don't see honesty as a concept that is rare. So the alien says that even on this planet, like without skin, you have no skin color problem, you have no racism in that sense. They still can't seem to get along. So here's he and John. Can they get along? Well, when he first captured John, he asked John who built Stonehenge, and John said he didn't know. And the alien says, oh, you do know. All Earthlings must know the history of their planet. You're keeping secrets from me. So here's the alien saying, I have power over you. Be nice if we could get along. But I'm being honest with you. Why aren't you being honest and open with me? So the alien goes on. There's a story that I would like to tell you, John, but communication breaks down. There was a lady who attended the executions, the terminations, the snuffings, the erasures, and she had, well, we don't have darning needles or wool or even sheep back home, so it's impossible to describe her. But she had a role in the story of the uprising, the rebellion, the revolution, that was quite profound. Yes, she would be there, John. She would be there in what you would call the Place de la Concorde every day. Oh, I'm speechless, John. Words fail me. There's no method that serves to convey. It's a story that I will have to leave untold. So the Universan finds it difficult to convey things that happen on his planet using information that is not from his planet. Here he's reached a story that he cannot find equivalent information for. He can't tell the story. He goes on. Well, there's another story, John, of two entities, I will say, who looked somewhat alike, but we don't have bodies, John, like you people here on Earth do. I only look this way when I'm with you. So their resemblance, John, to each other wasn't an earthly resemblance, of course. Without your knowing what we look like, John, we see essences, not bodies there. The story would have no point if I told it at all. It would be a waste of time to try to explain the significance to you. So here's another story that the universe cannot tell John because he doesn't want to use details from his home planet and he can't find details from Earth that would allow him to convey what he thinks is the point of the story. He goes on. Things have happened, John, on our planet that cannot be conveyed to anyone like yourself who has not been processed there. It would take many years of soaking up ambience in our equivalents of marketplaces, boulevards, barbershops, and cafes to be able to feel our culture deeply in the marrow of your bones. The building blocks of thought are images, John. Without images, there cannot be thought. Our two languages have no bridge, no hitch, no tie to be able to access for you, for me, what you people here might call a common ground. Between our two cultures, John, there is no Rosetta Stone. The words are lacking to make the images germinate, activate, emerge, hatch like your chicks from the larva of the dormant mode. So there's no Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone, Napoleon's troops found it in Egypt, and it had 2 or 3 languages on it, I think 3, that allowed them to read Egyptian hieroglyphics. Before that, the Europeans couldn't read the hieroglyphics in Egypt. Well, the Universan says there is no Rosetta Stone between our two languages. There's no stone that has allows you to read a language which you don't know. You don't know my language as the alien. I don't know yours. Well, the revolution prospered. I could say blood caused flowers to grow, but it wouldn't make sense to anyone back home. We looked forward as a people, John, to new pastures, new sunlight, new rutabagas, new rain barrels overflowing, new recipes, new styles. Some of these concepts are drawn from our lifestyle, John, and some of them are not. I'm deliberately mixing 2 modes here, John, fact and fiction, to throw you off track. We on our planet, remember, don't want you to know where we are. At any rate, we felt the dawn of a whole new segment of time, era, day. So they had a revolution. They put all the elites to death, or at least the equivalent of death, and they went on from there to create a whole new society. We just find it very hard to explain that to John because he can't find enough information in the human story to convey what actually happened in his alien or Universan story. Now, let's go on with a note. What the Universan does to disguise his own personal story, which includes the location and the name of his home planet, even the location and name of his home galaxy, is what many writers do. The Universan uses what I call displacement imagery to tell the story of the history of his home planet. When Shakespeare wishes to present his ideas about human relationships, he does not write stories about an actor from Stratford who writes plays which are put on in London. He writes plays about a prince in the state of Denmark, or a military leader in the Republic of Venice, or a king who's banished to an island when he loses his throne. In a similar way, when the alien, the Universan, wants to tell John about the abuse of his home planet's resources by the elites of his home planet, rather than tell John what those resources are, the Universan borrows information from the mind of John, which is taken from the history of the earth. The Universan tells John that he's using the earthly information as equivalencies, that he's borrowing the information of an earthly revolution, the revolution that you and I know as the French Revolution, to tell the story of the revolution on his home planet. He uses such information as the storming of the Bastille, the Place de la Concorde, the rumbling of the wagons on the cobblestones, none of which exist on his home planet, to convey the historical events on his home planet. This seems to work well until the Universan comes to 2 stories that he would like to tell, but for which he cannot find earthly equivalencies that would allow him to tell those 2 stories. The building blocks of thought, the alien tells John, are images, and in the case of the 2 untold stories, he's unable to find the information that would allow him to create the imagery, the displacement imagery that would convey the significance of the events on his home planet. This is the story of an earthling and an alien. It's a story of the history of their people on 2 different planets. So, would you say that there are any 2 groups of earthlings, any 2 groups on the planet Earth, whose history is so different that no matter how hard they might try, no matter how hard they might attempt to find equivalencies between their 2 stories, they would not be able to communicate the significance of their beliefs and rituals to one another. So it's a story that's about an alien and a human, but it's a story whose meaning is kind of an exploration of the relationships between humans and humans here on Earth. So this is my book, John and the Universan, Nothing is Known. It's found on Amazon, where there's more information. My publisher's website is roxmillspress.com. There's more information there. On my website, johnpassfield.ca, there are 2 books which you can access for free just by tapping on the cover icons. One is a planning notebook and one is a reflective journal, both of which talk about the writing of this novel and many of the themes that run through the novel and through the story. And lastly, I'll just say thank you for watching this video.